This presentation covers the main themes in Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. What is a theme in fiction? A theme in a work of fiction is an underlying message about life, typically a universal truth that a work of literature suggests. A novel typically has more than one theme. Themes are not directly stated but inferred through the actions of characters, the setting, symbolism, or other elements of the work that help show the author's view or position on a particular topic. What are the main themes of Mark Twain's novel, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn? One of the most important themes is that of racism and slavery. Although the Emancipation Proclamation, an executive order issued by President Abraham Lincoln, and the ratification of the 13th Amendment in 1865 together legally freed slaves, by the 1880s, Reconstruction, or the U.S. government plan to reunite the nation after the Civil War and integrate freed slaves into society, had been pretty much a failure. Soon, Jim Crow laws were passed in the South, severely limiting the power of African Americans once again. Also, the number of lynchings of black people increased dramatically, and the white supremacy movement with hate groups such as the KKK gained tremendous support. Twain seemed critical of the stubborn persistence of racism in his day. Due to the frequent use of the N-word in the novel, people in recent years have criticized Adventures of Huckleberry Finn as racist. However, Twain's sympathetic depiction of Jim as one of the most admirable characters in the novel, the hypocritical cruelty of slave owners such as Miss Watson, the so-called Christian woman who participates in the tearing apart of Jim's family, and the pure and innocent friendship of Jim and Huck show that Twain was clearly against the institution of slavery and felt that all people, regardless of color, should be treated with dignity and respect. At the end of the novel, Huck ironically chooses to go to hell rather than turn Jim in as a runaway slave because he believes he will be damned because he has been taught that it is wrong to harbor a runaway slave. However, the reader can see that Twain clearly feels Huck has made a morally correct choice by protecting his friend Jim, as most readers would disagree that the lovable Huck will actually go to hell for his decision to stand by his friend Jim. Another important theme in the novel is that of the importance of freedom. Jim desires freedom from slavery so that he can be together with his wife and 2 children, and Huck desires freedom from his violently abusive father, as well as the restrictions of society and civilization he faces when living with Widow Douglas and Miss Watson. Running away on the Mississippi River allows the two freedom to be what they want, and to do what they want without restraint, even if danger and loneliness are the price they must pay for this freedom. In the end, when Huck is invited to come back to live with the Widow Douglas, he chooses instead to head out west towards the frontier, the classic American symbol of freedom and independence, where society and its rules and regulations will not restrain the free-spirited Huck. Another theme in the novel is the corruption and hypocrisy of civilized society. Along the river, Huck and Jim encounter many rascals and morally lacking, selfish, corrupt, and hypocritical individuals, such as the Widow Douglas and Miss Watson, who are supposed to be good Christian women and yet have no problem with tearing apart Jim's family by selling him downriver. The King and the Duke, 2 con artists who rip off every innocent victim they can find along the shores of the Mississippi River. The Grangerfords and Shepherdsons, who murder each other's children immediately after sitting through a sermon on loving one's neighbors. Tom, who is a spoiled brat who selfishly ignores the feelings and even endangers the safety of others in order to entertain himself by playing out his active imagination and romance adventures. And Sherburne, who mercilessly shoots and kills the town drunk Boggs and goes without punishment because everyone is too cowardly to do anything about it. Huck and Jim are the 2 least respected and lowest members of their society, and yet they have the most developed sense of morality in the entire novel. In this way, Twain harshly criticizes society, although using humor often in doing so. Another theme is religion and superstition. Twain also criticizes traditional organized Christian religion in this novel. The Widow Douglas and Miss Watson feel they are being good Christians by taking in Huck and civilizing him, but they are unable to protect Huck from the his horribly abusive father and make Huck miserable with their rules and restraints. Huck rejects their teaching since he, quote, doesn't take much stock in dead people or those who tell the stories in the Bible, and he feels hell seems more appealing than heaven if it is filled with the likes of these boring and strict old women. Jim and Huck practice many superstitions, the religion of the lower classes in this novel, but as ridiculous as Twain makes their superstitions about unlucky snake skins, hairballs taken from an ox's stomach that tell the future, etc., they are portrayed as no more ridiculous than the teachings of Christianity, which do not even seem to make people any more moral in the novel than the superstitions. Another theme is growing up. One final theme in the novel is that of what it means to grow up. Huck matures especially morally as he becomes increasingly independent and acts more like himself as the novel progresses, being practical and true to his inner feelings. Ultimately, he is much more mature than Tom Sawyer at the end of the novel because he is sympathetic to the feeling of others, especially Jim's feelings, and he rejects the values he's been taught by his father and the society where he was raised, becoming a compassionate and open-minded individual who rejects racism and the rules of his so-called Christian society. Many in the novel, including adults, have not reached the level of maturity that Huck has reached. Many, such as the Duke and the King, Sherburne, the Grangerfords, and Shepherdsons, and Pap, are thoughtless, cruel, selfish, and dishonest, whereas Huck is thoughtful, caring, selfless, and honest. This information was taken from the website called The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Lit Charts, and all images were taken from Google Images.